This is a video about chord scales and the 4 essential 7th chords you need to play them. Chord scales are important because they're all about harmony, finding chords that are harmonious with a particular song. You can see that in this piece of music, piano music here. You'll notice that the melody line moves horizontally through the music, and all of the notes are in the key of C in this one. There are no sharps and flats. But notice also the harmonies, the chords. The chords are also have no sharps or flats. They're also in the key. And that's the key, is to have chords that have all of their notes in the key for where they're accompanying. Now this is easier to see on a piano with its white keys and black keys, so you can see what's in the key of C and the ones that aren't, the black notes. So we'll go to the piano to look at that. The good news is when we come back, they're actually easier to play on the guitar exactly because it doesn't have white and black keys, but everything is the same. All the frets are the same spacing, so we can play in any key once we figure it out on the piano. So now let's turn to the piano. So let's look at a chord scale of just triads in the key of C using all the white notes. So here's our first one. So there we have 7 chords starting in each note, and we'll notice that they're different though. This first chord has a major third followed by a minor third, so that is a major chord. Starting on the second position, we have a minor third followed by a major third, so that's a minor chord. The third position is also a minor chord. The fourth is a major chord. Fifth is a major chord. Sixth is a minor chord, and the seventh is the interesting one. It's a diminished chord. It has 2 minor thirds. And those are triads. That's a chord scale with triads. Now, in jazz, we typically play, they add a 7th to each of these chords. So when we make our chord scale, we're not going to have just the 3 notes, but we're going to have 4. So starting at the beginning, here we have and then we add this one. And then we go. So there's our chord scale using 4-note chords, all 7th chords. But these 7th chords are all a little bit different. There's actually 4 different kinds of 7th chords. The first one has the 1, 3, 5, and 7 here, and that's called a major 7th chord. So it's basically a major chord with a major third after it. The next one, as you remember, was a minor chord, and it adds a minor third after it. So that's called a minor 7th. This is also a minor 7th. The fourth is another major 7th. And here's the only real 7th chord. On the 5th, we have a major, a major chord with a minor third put on top of it. So there's your 5, which is a 7th chord. The 6th is another minor 7th, and the 7th is that diminished chord with a major third put on top of it. That's called a minor 7th with a flatted 5th. And there we are back to 1 again. So there's our chord scale. So we saw on the piano the first essential 7th chord is that major 7th chord, which is composed of the 1, 3, 5, and 7 notes in a scale. So we can look at a scale, and we can play it up here because it's easy to play. This happens to be A. But on the guitar, because it's all intervals, it really doesn't matter too much. We do it by the intervals. So our scale is, here's a note, and we go up a whole step, and a whole step, and a half step, and a whole step, a whole step, and a whole step, and a half. And those notes are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. So if we want to play a 1, 3, 5, 7, here's a 1, 3, 5, 7. Except the problem is we have both the 3 and the 5 here on the same string. So there are a number of different solutions, and there's only one that we're going to be using for this entire video. We're going to be using just one variation and use it to create all the other chords that we want to see. So for this situation, we're going to get rid of the 3, and we're going to play the 1, and then we're going to play the 5, and then the 7, and we're going to add the 3 down here. So it's higher. So there's 1, 5, 7, 3. So this is called the 1, 5, 7, 3 shape, and there's our major 7th chord. Now, once we know that, it's easy to find all the other shapes, but again, let's turn to the piano to see how that's done. Let's look at how we could make those chords just staying at the C. Look what the difference is. So here we started with this major 7th, and that happens to be a C major 7th. What if we wanted to make it a regular 7th chord, or what they call a dominant 7th chord? Well, then instead of having the 1, 3, 5, 7, we would put in a flatted 7th. So we'd put in this note. So there's a 7th chord, and we made it by flatting the 7. What if we wanted to make it a minor 7th chord? Well, we would do that by flatting the 3. So it starts with a minor 3rd interval. So then we go. So there's a minor 7th chord. And what if we wanted to make it a minor 7th chord with a flatted 5th? Well, there's the 5, so it's right there. So by flatting the 7, the 3, and then the 5, we get to create the 4 different kinds of chords. Now that we see how to find the other 7th chords, once we know one, we can put that to play right here on the guitar. So here is our major 7th chord on the bass strings. But I would like to just add that I find this a little bit awkward to play sometimes, and we're going to be using it throughout this whole video because all the theory all ties together around it. So having said that, so here's our 1, 5, 7, 3, and if we want to make it into a straight 7th chord, we just flat the 7. So here's the 7, and we flat that. There, and by the way, all the other fingerings are really easy for all the rest of the chords. So there's our 7th chord, and if we wanted to make it a minor 7th, we just flat the 3, and here's our 3, so we flat that, and there's our minor 7th chord. And then if we wanted to play a minor 7 with a flat 5, well, that's the 5, we bring that back. So there's our 4 essential 7th chords. There we have a major 7th, 7th, minor 7th, minor 7th with a flat 5. Now, once we have those 4 shapes, we've got everything we need on the bass string to play a full chord scale on the E string. So we just work our way with the notes up in the key of E. And it doesn't matter what they are, because we just know the spacing. So we start, there's our open E string, and then the 2nd fret, there's a whole step, and a whole step, and a half step, whole step, whole step, whole step, half. So there's a scale going up the E string, and we can just root our chords off of each of those notes. So we start with the 1, which is a major 7, and then we go to a 2, which is a minor 7, 3, minor 7, 4 is a major 7, 5 is the 7th chord, 6 is a minor 7, 7 is that flatted 5. And there we are back to 1 again. So there's our chord scale on the E string. See, that was a little tricky. But the rest are all easy. And we'll see they're easy on the other strings as well. So there's our chord scale on the E string. When we've got that chord scale on the E string, it's worth looking, just exploring the concept of why do we need these different shapes. And it was all about harmony, as we said. So let's see what happens if we use the wrong shapes. So here's our playing our chord scale. There's our 1, there's our 2, here's our 3. But what if we just stay to another minor 7? It doesn't sound right. So what if we did a 1, 2, and then we went to a major 7? It doesn't sound right either. So if we use the wrong shapes, if we don't use the right shape for the position on the chord scale, we lose all the harmony. It all disappears. One of the things I find that playing a chord scale on a single string makes it easier to visualize various chord progressions. And chord progressions are always written with the Roman numerals, and the classic one is a 2, 5, 1, and you'll see that. Another nice one is a 4, 3, 6, and you can kind of join those two together. So we'll look at those two, but those are kind of abstract numbers, but you can kind of see them. So the 2, here's the 2, and here's the 5, and here's the 1 for the bass notes, and for the 1 which goes 1, 4, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So there are the bass notes for those chord progressions, and we can just fill in our chords on the bass strings. So here's our 1, and here's our 4, here's our 3, here's our 6, here's our 2, and our 5, and back to 1. So now we've got all of our 4 essential sevenths, and we can use them to play chord scales on the E string using just these 4 bass notes. What if we want to move those over to the 4 middle strings? Well, if the guitar was tuned, all the strings were the same, just simply picking it up and sliding it over one would do the trick. So we could take this major 7th here and just pick it all up and move it over one. Except it doesn't sound right. The problem is the 2nd string, the B string, is only tuned a 1/3 away from the G string next to it. So because it's only a 1/3, that means when we slide across the fretboard like that, whichever finger winds up on the B string, the 2nd string, needs to be sharped one. So instead of this, we wind up with this pattern. We just move that one finger up. And there's our major 7th on the middle string. Still it's a 1, 5, 7, 3. 1, 5, 7, 3 right there. And we can play the same game now to find the other ones. To get a 7th chord, we just, we flat the 7. So here's the 7, and we flat it, and we get, and there's the shape for a 7th chord. And what if we want a minor 7th chord? Well, there's the 3, and we flat it. Here's our minor 7th chord. And with a flatted 5, well, we just flat the 5. And there's our 4 essential 7th chords on the middle strings. And now once we've got those 4 essential 7th chords on the middle strings, we can use them to play a chord scale on the A string. So here's our A string. And we can use those to root our various shapes. So we start here with a major 7, and then we go to the minor 7th. 3 is a minor 7th, 4 is a major 7th, 5 is a 7th, 6 is a minor 7th, 7 is a flatted 5th, and then back to the 1, major 7th. So there's our chord scale. A string. So we can use that to play our chord progression on the A string. So there's the 1, there's the 4, there's the 3, and the 6, here's the 2, here's the 5, and back to the 1. Now that we have the 4 essential 7th chords on the middle strings, we can play the exact same game and bring them over to the treble strings. So here is there's our major 7th on the middle strings, and we can pick it up and move it exactly as it is over to the treble string. And well, as it doesn't sound as bad as last time, but in fact it's the wrong chord, because the B string has to be sharp by 1 whenever you move over like that. So there's the B string, we move it up, and this kind of fingering works well. So there's our major 7th chord on the treble strings. Now we play the exact same game, that if we know where the 7 is, we can flat it and get a 7th chord, which is actually where we just were. So there's our 7th chord on the treble strings. Now if we want to make it a minor chord, we take down the 3, and there's the 3. Get this little bit awkward fingering here, but there's a minor 7th chord on the treble strings. And if we want to go to the flat 5, well, there's the 5. We take it down here like this. There's our 4 7th chords on the treble strings. So just as before, we can now play our chord scale, this time on the D string. So we start with our major 7 down here. And we go to a minor 7 for the 2, minor 7th for the 3, major 7th for the 4, 7th for the 5, minor 7th for the 6, flat 5 for the 7, and we're back. And just as before, we can play our chord progression if we want there. So if you remember, our chord progression started with a 1, and went to a 4, then went down to a 3, and up to a 6, and then to a 2, 5, 1. Of course, when we're actually playing the guitar, we're not going to want to do our chord scales up and down a single string like that. We'd rather work across the fretboard, have a little more flexibility. And it turns out that's very easy to do using a simple fact about the guitar, that here, for example, this note here is exactly the same as this note here. So we just go back 5 frets and over 1, and we get the same note. So that means we can take our 1, 5, 7, 3 here, and if we play a 1, 5, 7, 3 off this note, we get the exact same chord. Not something similar, not a different kind of alternate fingering for something, but the exact same string. That's the same as this. And we can use that now to move our chord scale across the fretboard. So if we were going to make a chord scale in G, there's a G, so there's the 1, there's the 2, there's the 3, and then here's the 4. But instead of playing the 4 up there, we can play it down here. And then we go continue on the middle strings. Here's the 5, here's the 6, and here's the 7. But instead of playing it there, same thing, we can play it here. There's the 7, and back to 1. So then, our chord scale in G, going across the fretboard, sounds like this. Like that. Once we've got our chord scale running across the frets like that, we can use it to play our chord progression. So if you remember, it starts with a 1. But look, the 4 is right next door like this. And then the 3 is up here. But then we just step across to the 6. The 2 is back here. We just a step across to the 5 and back to the 1. So there's 1, 4, 3, 6, 2, 5, 1. So you can see what we've done here. If you look at this diagram, you can see how we have the 4 essential 7th chords on the bass, middle, and treble strings, and how each of them is derivable from any of the others. If you knew any one of them, you can keep making like just 1 fret adjustments and get to any other one. So all you need to know is one of these, and you know all 12 of them. And because they're all movable, this gives you just tremendous ability to play whatever chords you want to play anywhere. So let's say, for example, you wanted to play Take 5. Well, it's in a crazy key. It's in like E flat minor, and it starts off with an E flat minor and a B flat minor. So how do you play those? Do you need a chord chart? No, you simply need to look for E flat minor, which is, so here's the A, B, C, D, E, and there's E flat, and we just use our minor shape there. So there's E flat minor. What about B flat minor? So E, F, G, A, B, B flat, and we use our minor shape there. And so there we start with Take 5. Other crazy chords that are in that tune are all chords from the chord scale for E flat minor. So it's as simple as that. You can play any jazz tune armed with just that chart. Let's finish this lesson by looking at Fly Me to the Moon. It's a classic jazz song which is famous for using the entire circle of fifths, which means that it uses all the chords in the chord scale. And well, it's in the key of C or A minor, depending on who you talk to, but it starts with an A minor 7th. So again, here's our E, F, G, A. So there's our A, and we can make our A minor 7th right here. So here's the chords for Fly Me to the Moon. So A minor 7, and it goes to D minor 7, and then it goes to G7, and then C major 7, and it gets that little thing in there. F major 7, B minor 7 with a flat 5, E7, well it should be a minor 7th, but it's in a harmonic minor, never mind that, it's in the book. And then to A minor 7th down here again. So it goes Fly Me to the Moon. So I know it's conventional to put your advertising in the front and to advertise, you know, put a sales pitch in the front, but if you've actually watched this whole video and gotten to here, I'll save my sales pitch for the end here. And that is simply for my book. The book is Understanding Jazz Chords for Guitar. It has all the material that we've just covered here in it. Plus it shows you how to do that for various other kinds of ways of figuring the you know, the 1, 3, 5, and 7 chords, different fingerings, different ways to play the chord scales. It has many more chord progressions, maps on how to find the chord progressions, and a full encyclopedia of all the different jazz shapes, 13ths and 7ths with augmented 4ths and whatever, all these kind of weird chords are, and how to play them in different spaces on the fretboard. So highly urge you to check out my book, Understanding Jazz Chords for Guitar. and also jazz chords for baritone ukulele, which gives you the underlying theory of how these all connect. And I think it's actually a great place to start because the ukulele just has 4 strings, and it's much easier to see these things if you're just working on a 4-string instrument, which happen to be the same as the 4 treble strings. Anyway, that's the ad. Check out my website, look at the book, and you know, send me a message if you want to let me know what you think. Thanks.